The stone viaducts of the Rhaetian Railway were built around 1900. They still serve the modern railway practically unchanged. In 2008, the Albula line became a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But the 100-year-old viaducts now need renovating.
I like being here. Driving a train on the Albula line is a very satisfying job. I enjoy my work. For me, the Albula line is not just a feat of civil engineering. The 2-hour ride from Chur to St-Moritz is also an unforgettable experience. I would not want to pick out any one structure. What counts is the overall impression of the journey across the mountains.
Jörg Konzett is a civil engineer and bridge builder who is part of the team responsible for renovating the stone viaducts.
I took a very conservative approach at first. I thought, that was such a great achievement, the Albula line and the lines that come after it, and especially those stone viaducts. What right have we to tamper with them?
At 65 metres high and 135 metres long, the Landwasser Viaduct is the largest single viaduct on the Albula line. Bringing it into line with today's safety standards presented a particular challenge for the planners.
After 100 years, the bridges needed sealing and were too narrow. This had to do with the length of the carriages, the speeds of travel, and the transverse gradient of the track. There was hardly any space at all between the carriages and the rails. So as the viaducts had to be sealed in any case, it made sense to widen them at the same time.
The viaduct's greatest enemy is water, which seeps into the masonry from above and from the side and causes a lot of damage. So to protect the viaducts against driving rain, the pointing had to be removed and redone. The bridgehead was insulated with a ballast trough made of reinforced concrete and the blocked drain pipes replaced.
Stone bridges basically last forever if they're properly maintained, which basically means preventing water from seeping in. As the railway engineer Reber once said, an iron bridge is like a machine. Sooner or later, it's had its day.
I think the people back then were incredibly brave. I can hardly imagine building a bridge like this without machines. So I've got a lot of respect for what they achieved.
The initiator of the Albula Line project was Robert Moser. He championed the durability and aesthetic superiority of stone and praised it as a solid and quintessentially Swiss building material. Moser's astute propaganda sparked off a renaissance of stone bridge building in Switzerland.
It's only natural that we should want to know how people, 100 or 200 years ago, would have gone about solving the problems we're grappling with at present. Studying the civil engineering of the past invariably involves running into something unknown, and people who perhaps worked very differently from how we work today. It can be very irritating, but it can also be very stimulating.
Before anyone dared lay a hand on the prestigious Landwasser Viaduct, the methods first had to be tested and perfected on smaller structures. For the renovation work to go ahead during the day, the construction crew had to put in a night shift in which they removed 7 metres of old track and replaced it with a temporary bridge with pre-mounted rails. In order to finish by dawn, when the first trains began running again, the men had to work to a very tight schedule.
To my mind, the viaducts and other structures on the Albula line are exactly where they should be. They're built of local stone and are a wonderful example of how a man-made structure can become one with its surroundings.
Wie ein Bauwerk mit seiner Umgebung eins sein kann.
There were all sorts of reasons for choosing stone as a material for the viaducts. One of the most important being topography. Most of the viaducts span deep and narrow valleys, meaning that there was sufficient height in which to build more or less semicircular arches. A second reason was the fact that there was more than enough stone of the necessary quality all along the line. Harvesting this stone and then using it in situ made good economic sense. A third key reason was the desire to meet tourists' expectations. The aim was to create pictures that matched the landscape that tourists had come to Switzerland to see, that were not so much a triumph of engineering, as a viaduct made of steel would have been, as a continuation of traditional styles of building.
John Caprese is the man generally credited with having initiated the idea of seeking UNESCO World Heritage status for the Albula line. His desire to protect the railway line, its viaducts and tunnels, met with great scepticism at first.
Most of the concerns had to do with the fact that a railway is not a static cultural commodity that's no longer needed, and hence a museum piece. It's more a going concern that has a job to do, and hence must be allowed to modernize.
The viaduct walls are completely plain and unadorned. But at the top of the walls, there are these corbels and the cover plates made of granite they support. Not only is this a very practical structure, and as such excellent civil engineering, but it's also a kind of ornament which makes for an effective contrast with the very wide walls. As the viaduct's only embellishment, it was important that the structure be preserved. The problem was how to do it, as many of the viaducts had to be widened too. We therefore experimented to see what would happen if the original corbels were replaced by ones which jutted out further, and the cover plates then shifted outwards to the same degree. But where do you stop? It was asking rather a lot for a masonry structure in front of a concrete trough to be rebuilt and even extended. It was against the doctrine of the integrity of buildings. I would compare it to an old person who loses a tooth and replaces it with a false one. You wouldn't expect them to go around with a gap for the sake of oral integrity.
As one who has a personal interest in seeing this wonderful railway line preserved and the maintenance work done with great care, I can see how the acquisition of UNESCO World Heritage status has already made a difference. The renovation of the viaduct is being done meticulously and overseen by experts, and I'm delighted about every renovation project that's completed successfully, as with the Landwasser viaduct.
If you take a closer look at the history of the Albula line, you can't help but admire the lengths to which the builders of the original line went. Their painstaking attention to detail should be an example to follow.